The universal genius, Leonardo da Vinci. He designed the future of mankind, then died with it, locked in a notebook.
In the dim, flickering candlelight of the Hospital of Santa Maria Nuova in Florence, during the winter of 1507, a man meticulously peeled back the facial skin of a deceased 100-year-old man. He was not a trained doctor, but an artist driven by an insatiable desire to understand the mechanics of the human machine. He traced the branching vessels, observed the calcification of the arteries, counted the vertebrae, and recorded his groundbreaking findings in a mirror-script handwriting that would remain largely unread for centuries. This was not a moment of macabre fascination, but a profound quest for empirical truth.
He wanted to know exactly how the heart pumped blood, how the eye perceived light, and how intricate facial muscles formed a simple human smile. This relentless curiosity defined the life of a man whose mind refused to acknowledge the artificial boundaries between art and science, making him the ultimate archetype of the Renaissance genius. Born Leonardo di Piero da Vinci on April 15, 1452, he is celebrated globally today as the quintessential Italian polymath. While the modern world primarily remembers him as an artist of unparalleled mastery and emotional depth, his personal identity was far more expansive. Throughout his 67 years of life, he operated as a scientist, engineer, inventor, anatomist, architect, botanist, and philosopher. As a citizen of the Republic of Florence, and later a highly valued courtier in the Duchy of Milan and the Kingdom of France, Leonardo's historical influence transcends the 15th and 16th centuries.
He is considered profoundly influential because he foresaw the modern empirical scientific method, relying heavily on direct observation and physical experimentation, rather than blindly accepting classical dogma. His miraculously surviving notebooks, encompassing over 7,200 pages of sketches and dense text, reveal a brilliant mind that conceptualized flying machines, armored military vehicles, and concentrated solar power centuries before the industrial technology existed to build them.
Leonardo was born out of wedlock in the rugged Tuscan hill town of Vinci, nestled deep in the lower valley of the Arno River. He was the illegitimate son of Messer Piero Fruosino di Antonio da Vinci, a wealthy Florentine legal notary, and Caterina, an impoverished local peasant girl. Because of his strict illegitimate status, Leonardo was legally barred from attending prestigious European universities and the esteemed lucrative guilds of doctors and notaries. Consequently, he received only the most basic, informal education in reading, writing, and elementary mathematics. He did not learn Latin, the universal language of Renaissance scholars, until he was entirely self-taught much later in his adult years.
This early societal exclusion, however, was a monumental blessing in disguise. Unburdened by the rigid scholasticism of his time, Leonardo proudly became a self-proclaimed disciple of experience. He roamed the rolling hills of Vinci, sketching local flora, observing the flight patterns of birds, and studying the turbulent flow of water. His illegitimacy also meant he was largely raised in the household of his paternal grandfather, Antonio, who nurtured his early artistic inclinations.
By 1466, at the young age of 14, Leonardo's well-connected father secured him a formal apprenticeship in Florence at the bustling workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the most commercially successful artists and sculptors of the era. Florence was the vibrant epicenter of Christian humanist thought, generously bankrolled by the powerful Medici banking family. In Verrocchio's highly productive bottega, Leonardo was not merely taught how to grind pigments, he was immersed in a rigorous technical education. The workshop handled everything from painting delicate altarpieces to casting massive bronze bells. Here, Leonardo intimately learned drafting, chemistry, metallurgy, plaster casting, leatherworking, mechanics, and carpentry, alongside traditional drawing.
In 1471, he famously witnessed the hoisting of the massive 2-ton copper sphere atop the Florence Cathedral, sketching the complex cranes designed by Filippo Brunelleschi. The philosophical environment of Florence, heavily influenced by the Neoplatonic revival under Lorenzo de' Medici, taught Leonardo to view the macrocosm of the earth as intimately connected to the microcosm of the human body.
Leonardo smoothly transitioned from a talented apprentice to an artist of recognized brilliance in a highly publicized moment of collaborative triumph. In 1472, at the age of 20, he officially qualified as a recognized master in the Guild of St. Luke. His true public emergence occurred around 1475, when he collaborated directly with his master, Verrocchio, on the large panel painting, The Baptism of Christ. According to the 16th century Renaissance biographer Giorgio Vasari, the young Leonardo painted the kneeling angel on the far left, using the relatively new medium of oil paint, which allowed for incredibly subtle blending and luminous visual depth. The sheer lifelike, ethereal quality of Leonardo's painted angel supposedly prompted a humbled Verrocchio to put down his brush and swear to never paint again. While this specific anecdote may be slightly embellished by historians, the undeniable technical superiority of Leonardo's brushwork brought him immediate critical attention. By 1478, he received his first major independent commissions, stepping out of his master's shadow. Yet he soon established a lifelong pattern of abandoning ambitious projects. In 1481, he was commissioned to paint the Adoration of the Magi, but he left it permanently unfinished when a greater opportunity beckoned outside Florence. Leonardo's definitive, world-changing breakthrough did not occur in his native Florence, but rather in the wealthy, militaristic Duchy of Milan. In 1482, the 30-year-old Leonardo actively sought permanent employment with Ludovico Sforza, the powerful Duke of Milan. In an astonishingly bold 10-point letter to the Duke, Leonardo aggressively marketed himself primarily as a brilliant military engineer, confidently boasting of his ability to design highly portable bridges, devastating bombard cannons, and impenetrable armored chariots. He only casually mentioned in the 10th paragraph that he could also paint and sculpt. Sforza was intrigued and hired him. It was in Milan, between the years 1495 and 1498, that Leonardo achieved his undisputed mural masterpiece, The Last Supper, painted on the refectory wall of the convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie. Measuring 15 feet by 29 feet, this massive mural fundamentally revolutionized Western narrative art. Instead of depicting the emotionally static lineup of apostles, Leonardo captured the explosive psychological moment immediately after Jesus announces a betrayal. The painting was an instant, monumental success across the continent, cementing Leonardo's towering reputation as a peerless master capable of depicting the motions of the mind. Following the devastating French invasion of Milan in 1499, Leonardo's life became a highly nomadic journey, marked by a staggering variety of intellectual achievements. In 1500, he returned to Florence and was received as a celebrated genius. In 1502, he took a radical professional detour, actively serving as the senior military architect for the ruthless warlord Cesare Borgia. He traveled extensively across Italy, drawing highly accurate topographical maps that are still admired today for their breathtaking cartographic precision. During this same year, he boldly designed a massive 940-foot single-span bridge for Sultan Bayezid II of the Ottoman Empire, though it was deemed too physically impossible to build at the time. Returning to Florence in 1503, he began meticulous work on his most famous portrait, the Mona Lisa. His scientific inquiries deepened aggressively. Between 1507 and 1513, he personally performed over 30 illicit dissections of human corpses in hospitals, producing anatomical drawings of the heart that were centuries ahead of contemporary medical knowledge. In 1513, he moved to Rome, residing in the Vatican under the financial patronage of Giuliano de' Medici. Finally, in 1516, at the advanced age of 64, He accepted the generous invitation of King Francis I to move permanently to the Château du Clos-Lucé in Amboise, France, bearing the esteemed title Premier Painter and Engineer and Architect to the King, taking the unfinished Mona Lisa and his vast collection of notebooks with him. Leonardo is fundamentally most famous in the modern global consciousness for the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, which definitively remain the most reproduced and intensely analyzed paintings in recorded human history. The Mona Lisa, permanently housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris and viewed in person by roughly 10 million people annually, is deeply celebrated for its revolutionary use of sfumato, the subtle, imperceptible blurring of sharp outlines to create a highly realistic atmospheric illusion of 3 dimensions. The famously enigmatic smile of the subject captivated high society and the global media, especially after its sensational, widely reported theft in 1911. However, stretching far beyond his individual paintings, Leonardo is universally famous as the ultimate historical embodiment of the Renaissance Anne. When his private notebooks, containing the mathematically precise Vitruvian man drawing, were eventually published, global society truly realized the staggering breadth of his intellect. He became famous not merely as a painter, with only about 17 surviving paintings definitively attributed to his hand today, but as a brilliant visionary who accurately anticipated the helicopter, the parachute, and the geological concept of plate tectonics. As a complex human being, Leonardo was incredibly charismatic, highly eccentric, and chronically distracted. Contemporary historical accounts repeatedly describe him as a man of striking physical beauty, immense physical strength, and a famously generous spirit. He was profoundly motivated by a relentless, childlike curiosity about the natural physical world. He firmly believed that nature was the ultimate teacher, and that human vision was the supreme physical sense. Highly unusually for the culturally traditional 16th century, he was a deeply committed ethical vegetarian. Historical witnesses vividly recorded that he would frequently wander through the busy merchant markets of Florence, buy cages of captive birds from vendors, and immediately release them high into the sky. However, he was notoriously undisciplined regarding strict financial deadlines, heavily struggling with an intense, paralyzing perfectionism that severely limited his artistic output. If he could not perfectly understand the complex underlying anatomy of a specific neck muscle, he would stubbornly refuse to finish a portrait. Personally, Leonardo was a homosexual man, a fact which briefly brought him into severe conflict with strict Florentine law. In 1476, at the age of 24, he and 3 other young men were anonymously accused of sodomy, a serious crime punishable by death in Florence. The terrifying charges were eventually dismissed for a complete lack of corroborating witnesses, but the public ordeal deeply impacted his lifelong sense of extreme personal privacy. Despite his undeniable, transcendent genius, Leonardo's long life was deeply scarred by monumental, highly public failures and heavy contemporary professional criticism. He was notoriously, infuriatingly unreliable to his patrons, prompting Pope Leo X to exclaim in bitter frustration in 1514, "Alas, this man will never do anything, for he begins by thinking about the end before the beginning of the work." His most devastating public failure involved the highly publicized Battle of Anghiari, a massive mural commissioned in the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence in 1504, directly competing against his bitter rival Michelangelo. Measuring an ambitious 22 by 56 feet, Leonardo attempted a disastrous experimental mixing of oil and wax directly on the stone wall. The heavy paint quickly began to drip, and he desperately tried to dry it with blazing coal fires, which tragically melted the delicate upper sections. The entire project was humiliatingly abandoned. Similarly, his crowning achievement, the Last Supper, tragically began visibly flaking off the dining hall wall during his own lifetime, simply because he stubbornly refused to use traditional, fast-drying fresco techniques,
opting instead for a highly experimental tempera paint applied to dry plaster. Furthermore, his most monumental sculptural project for a massive 24-foot bronze equestrian statue in Milan was never actually cast. The staggering 70 tons of valuable bronze he had meticulously gathered for the complex casting were abruptly seized by the Duke of Ferrara in 1494 to urgently make cannons for an impending war. Leonardo's short-term historical impact was immediately felt throughout the European art world. His pioneering techniques of chiaroscuro, the dramatic contrast between light and dark, and sfumato fundamentally and permanently changed how all subsequent artists rendered human volume and subtle emotion. An entire generation of devoted artists in Milan dedicated their professional careers to faithfully mimicking his distinct atmospheric style. Long-term, his influence is unimaginably vast, heavily spanning both the creative humanities and the hard physical sciences. While his coded scientific notebooks were unfortunately kept intensely private and did not directly influence the broader scientific revolution of the 17th century, their modern rediscovery conclusively proved that the strict empirical method was actively forming much earlier than historians previously thought. In civil engineering, his meticulous studies on friction and complex fluid dynamics were fundamentally sound. He famously designed the precise mitre lock system that is still actively used in modern water canals today. In the vital realm of human anatomy, if his groundbreaking drawings of the human heart had been widely published during his lifetime, the vast history of global medicine would have been advanced by at least 2 full centuries. Today, over 5 centuries after his passing, Leonardo da Vinci is universally revered as the absolute zenith of human intellectual potential. His towering legacy seamlessly spans across elite academic institutions and mainstream global popular culture. In 2017, a heavily restored painting attributed to him, Salvator Mundi, shattered all known global art records by selling at a Christie's auction in New York for an astonishing $450.3 million, definitively proving the unmatched financial gravity of his name. Numerous prestigious museums, including the Museo Galileo in Florence and the Clos Lucé in France, are proudly dedicated to physically reconstructing his ingenious machines directly from his ancient codices. In 1994, billionaire Bill Gates purchased Leonardo's Codex Leicester for a staggering $30.8 million, recognizing its immense scientific value. Historically, his public image has evolved drastically from a masterful painter to a profound, disciplined scientific visionary whose artistic output was merely one beautiful byproduct of a much larger quest to understand the underlying mathematical geometry of the universe. He remains the ultimate historical proof that the rigid boundaries between hard science and expressive art are merely artificial human constructs. Leonardo da Vinci died quietly at the Château du Clos Lucé in France on May 2, 1519. His remarkable, unconventional life is a powerful testament not to an unreachable, superhuman perfection, but rather to the breathtaking, world-altering power of relentless human curiosity. He was a deeply flawed man who left many magnificent paintings unfinished and countless grand engineering projects unrealized. Yet his perceived mortal failures were simply the inevitable result of an expansive imagination that vastly outpaced the physical and technological limitations of his era. Leonardo's enduring legacy firmly reminds us that true transcendent genius does not always lie in immediate completion or commercial success, but in the relentless, joyful, and uncompromising pursuit of universal understanding. By patiently observing the turbulent swirl of a river, the subtle smile of a woman, and the complex anatomical structure of a bird's wing, he brilliantly revealed that the universe is a profoundly interconnected masterpiece, waiting only for those with the discipline and wonder to open their eyes and see.